Welcome, folks, to Crypto News Global. I'm your host, Nick Toka. On today's show, West Virginia legislator introduces digital asset reserve bill. Abu Dhabi sovereign wealth fund stockpiles 436 million in BlackRock Bitcoin ETF shares on the low. And our feature story of today, a Bitcoin to get out of most people's reach within a year, says BTC veteran Samson Mow. All this and so much more on today's show. Welcome, folks, to Crypto News Global. I'm your host, Nick Toka. Today is February 14th, 2025. Happy Valentine's Day to all the friends out there. And Bitcoin is a pumping to show its love for the common citizens like us. We are up about 1%. Things have been green pretty much all day. Let's get right into our Bitcoin market watch and Bitcoin technical analysis. We see lots of green on the board today. Currently almost up 1% at 97,852. Ethereum up again. Less than 1% at 2,731. Solana up 1% at $198. XRP up 9% at $2.81. Sui up a little bit. About 1%, $3.56, and Doge up 6% at 28 cents even. Perhaps our crypto bubbles will give us a better perspective on what's going on, and we see that the Trump coin is a pumping. We've got, that's our big winner for today, up 34%. Ohm up 36%. Well, I guess Trump's second best. But about 80-90% of things are in the green. We see XRP up 9%, a good move for them. The gainers from the other day, Cake is down, Hex is down. It's almost like a flip-flop. PLSX also down. Zooming out to the weekly, we've got Cake up 80%, XRP up 20%, Pyth up 27%. Trump up 33%, SPX up 33%, and zooming out to the monthly, we've got Ultima up 130%, Tel up 77%, Ohm up 100%. In market cap, we have Bitcoin currently at $1.938 trillion, Ethereum at 329 billion. XRP has flipped Tether again at 162 billion. Solana at 97 billion. Doge at 41.5. Cardano at 28 billion, and Tron even at $20 billion. That's number 10 on our market cap watch, and a total market cap today of $3.2 trillion for the entire crypto industry, with Bitcoin taking 60.52% of the total market cap. Ethereum 10.28, dropping again. XRP over 5% again at 5.1% approximately. Solana 3% of the total market. Crypto Fear and Greed Index, we have currently today a 50 in neutral. Yesterday was a 48 in neutral. Last week a 44 in neutral. There are approximately 1,100 days until the next Bitcoin halving in 2028. That would make it 166,174 blocks until the next halving. And until the year 2140, where the last block is mined, we've got 1,175,544 remaining. Market cap By top assets, we've got gold down a little bit today, 19.4 trillion, Apple 3.6 trillion, Nvidia 3.4, Microsoft 3 trillion, even Amazon 2.423 trillion, Google 2.3 trillion, Bitcoin still at number 7, 1.936 trillion. Facebook has flipped silver again, currently at 1.866 trillion, silver at 1.838. Saudi Aramco now number 10 at 1.794 trillion. Tesla rounding up the top 11, 1.15 trillion. You can currently get 1,022 satoshis for 1 fiat US dollar, and we're getting very close to 36 trillion 500 billion. We're currently at 36 trillion 481 billion in US national debt, equaling 107,204 per US citizen, which has gone up about $100 since yesterday, and that equals to 323,047 per taxpayer. It's interesting, this taxpayer number hasn't changed in weeks. Per citizen's definitely changed, and of course the US national debt is going up literally $1 million every 15 seconds, we'll call it, just from me. If we count it, it is pretty much exactly 10 to 15 seconds every $1 million. Just insanity out there in terms of what is owed, and the only repercussion they have and the only change they make is print more money, and that just keeps reciprocating, and this cycle will never end by the looks of it until something real profound and country changing comes along. Maybe it's the biddy. So we have yet another state introducing a digital asset and Bitcoin reserve. We've got West Virginia legislator introduces digital asset reserve bill. According to analysis from Van Eck, U.S. states with pending strategic reserve legislation could drive $23 billion of demand for Bitcoin. West Virginia State Senator Chris Rose has submitted a bill titled the Inflation Protection Act of 2025 to allow the state's treasury to invest a portion of its holding into digital assets or precious metals. The bill, submitted on February 14th, today creates provisions for the West Virginia Treasury to invest in any digital asset with market capitalization over $750 billion, including stablecoins. So if we go back to our valuation, $750 billion. So really including stablecoins, there's one, because Ethereum's at 330 billion and we've got Bitcoin 1.9 billion. So they're talking about Bitcoin here. At the time of writing, Bitcoin 98,000 is the only digital asset that meets the market cap requirement outlined in the proposal. According to the bill, the Treasury can only invest 10% of its total funds into digital assets and precious metals. Additionally, the state can hold the assets on-chain or through exchange-traded funds, which is great. They can do it on-chain, so that's different than what we're hearing with some other thoughts. So good. Senator Rose's bill is the largest in a torrent of legislative proposals at the state level to establish Bitcoin or digital asset strategic reserves as a hedge against currency inflation due to structural deficit spending. What we've been talking about. U.S. states lead the way. Will they front-run the federal government? On January 23rd, Federal Trump commissioned a working group to study feasibility of the digital asset reserve for a U.S. federal government. Since that time, several U.S. states have introduced advanced or rewritten legislation to establish digital asset reserves. And here we have the states that have put in a bill for their own reserve, and we've got 5, we have 10, 15, 20 states. According to my count yesterday, it was 19, so it looks like 20 states have put in a request for a Bitcoin reserve. And here, this chart is very detailed. And the source size, potential investment, most of them, a lot of them are 10%. Some are, Texas, 1%. Well, that's pretty conservative. New Mexico, 5%. Some are not available, so they haven't disclosed how much they could potentially put, but 10%, I'm seeing a number of them, and of course the estimated investment size, we're looking at Oklahoma, 1.5 billion, so that could be up to 15,000 Bitcoin. And then the other couple big ones here, Missouri, 1.7 bill, New Mexico, 2 bill, South Dakota, 1.7 billion, North Carolina, 2.6 billion. So we're talking, 27,000 Bitcoin, 17,000, 21,000, 17,000, 15,000. So things are looking up for the biddy. So that would be currently 20 out of 50 states. Would be 40% of these states have actually put in a bill to use Bitcoin as a strategic reserve. So things are definitely looking up. It leads us into a few other stories that we've got today with more bullish news. And I've been talking about nation states adopting Bitcoin for quite some time. And today there was a big announcement. Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund stockpiles 436 million in BlackRock Bitcoin ETF shares. Mubadala Investment Company, the sovereign wealth fund for Abu Dhabi's government, bought 436 million in Bitcoin ETF shares. The Mubadala Investment Company, the sovereign wealth fund that manages investments for the Abu Dhabi's government, signaled on Friday that it started stockpiling exposure to Bitcoin last year via the leading ETF. You see, they've been buying it on the low, keeping their mouths shut, and that way the price has stayed low. Now, interesting, the same day they announce it, we see the biddy is up, 1.5%. During the fourth quarter last year, Mubadala scooped up 436 million worth of BlackRock spot ETF, according to a quarterly report disclosing U.S. equity ownership filled with the Securities and Exchange Commission, totaling 8.2 million in shares of the Nasdaq-listed iShares Bitcoin Trust ETF. It appeared that Friday's disclosure represented a fresh investment by Mubadala in the product. A filing from the previous quarter did not disclose holdings in BlackRock's 56.3 billion spot Bitcoin ETF. Mubadala did not immediately respond to a request for comment from Decrypt, as President Donald Trump's administration mulls the prospect of a so-called strategic crypto reserve, which may include Bitcoin alongside other cryptocurrencies. Some market participants described Mubadala's move as incentive of an emerging race on a global scale. Yep. The other countries have started moving. Swan's head of private clients and family offices, Stephen Lupka, said on X. Several governments already hold Bitcoin, including the U.S., China, United Kingdom, El Salvador, according to CoinGecko. However, the crypto data aggregator noted in an August report that the 32.7 billion sum largely stems from seizures related to criminal activity. As one of the United Arab Emirates, Abu Dhabi is part of a growing crypto sector in the Middle East. Last summer, the blockchain center in Abu Dhabi launched, saying it will focus on creating a thriving ecosystem that supports startup enterprises, and economic institutions through a range of comprehensive services and initiatives. Though the U.S. may assert itself as a Bitcoin backer through Trump's proposed stockpile, plenty of states have pushed for investing in cryptocurrencies on their own. While 2 states have rejected Bitcoin reserve bills, similar legislation is either pending or actively being considered in 21 states, according to Bitcoin Reserve Monitor. So, huge news. Abu Dhabi, 436 million in Bitcoin. Amazing. Not surprising to me. It might be big news in the crypto community, but I've been calling this for a while. And again, these countries and these sovereign wealth funds have been buying this stuff on the low, buying the biddy, stacking them stats, and nobody has any clue that they're doing it, and they're doing it quietly on purpose, because once they announce it, then the price is going to spike. Who wants to buy Bitcoin at a higher price? Nobody. Nobody wants to buy anything at a higher price. So they buy it on the low, keep quiet, the price stays low, they buy more and more and more and more, and maybe when they're done buying is when they announce it. So perhaps that's actually what's going on. Now the global race to the Bitcoin starts. So let's see how the U.S. and other countries respond. I wonder if other countries are now going to come out and say, oh yeah, we've been buying Bitcoin as well. According to Samson Mow, things are looking up, and it's going to get to a point very soon where Bitcoin is going to get out of reach for most people within a year, is what he's saying. And here's why. The CEO of Bitcoin-focused tech firm Jan3, Samson Mow, is predicting that Bitcoin will soon hit astronomical price targets, making it unaffordable for most people. In a new interview with Anna Tutova, Samson says that governments around the world will likely start establishing Bitcoin reserves, driving its value much higher. He notes how more countries are now considering a Bitcoin reserve, including the Czech National Bank. So I think we'll see more urgent adoption of Bitcoin and very quick movements like from the Czech Central Bank. I mean, they're putting it to a vote. It's not we're exploring it, we're researching it, but putting it to a vote. So I think things will move very quickly this year in 2025. He also warns that governments slow to act to adopt a Bitcoin reserve may find themselves priced out of buying the flagship crypto altogether. Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim wants to add Bitcoin to Vancouver's reserves, and his motivation is that it will set up the city for prosperity in the next 100 years. The challenge really is that he has to get the rest of the council on board, and they have to run through some process to explore and research. But I think the challenge for them is the timeline. Will they be able to execute Bitcoin strategy within the next 6 months to a year? Because I see Bitcoin getting out of reach for most buyers in a year's time. He says that Bitcoin hitting around 1 million in 2025 is definitely a possibility. Bitcoin is trading for 97,500 a time, running up 2% in the last 24 hours. So here he is. And he's got the bold prediction. He's not the only one that's predicting Bitcoin up over $1 million in the next year or this cycle. I've heard many predictions going to that $1 million this cycle. My prediction is a little more conservative, between 225 and 375 for the cycle peak, but I do understand Samson's Mow perspective, and why would things get cheaper if, why would there be this dip in the 4-year cycle, as we see that's happened multiple times in the past? For every other halving, there's been the cycle peak, and then the price dips the following year. But why would that happen if all these nation states are starting to pick it up? So I kind of agree with that too, and it's hard to say if this cycle is going to be different, if it's going to be another peak, in between September, October, November of this year, and then a drop off the following year, followed by a slow increase until the next halving, where things will spike again. Another, as we've seen historically, as I've got charted out here, 19% in the first halving, 8 times, not percent, sorry, 19x, 19 times price increase. Then the halving in 2016, 8 times price increase. The halving in 2020, 7 times price increase. And this is why I'm saying, my prediction's conservative. The 3x price increase is 223 cycle peak, and my 6x price is 380 even. So will we see this drop off as we see the cycle peak in every previous halving? Here we've got the 2016 example. We've got the cycle peak at 14,700, and then we went all the way back down to $3,500 in 2019, just before the next halving, about a year and a half before the next halving, where the price again peaked the year after the halving. It's always the year after the halving, as we see here with the historical charts. And then we got to a peak of close to 70 grand, and then of course back down after the cycle peak. So in 2020, the halving. 2021 October, the cycle peak. 2022 end of the year. 2023 beginning of January, we're looking at the cycle lows of back down to $17,000, down from 70K. And what are we going to see here? So according to my charting, we're going to see this go way up, and then in 2026, toward the end of the year, we will see the cycle low. That's if history holds true. According to Samson Mow, it might be a little different this time around because of the nation-state adoption, and it's going to be like the space race. Everybody's going to be trying to buy the biddy before the other country buys the biddy, and they're basically going to be bidding each other up. The more people that announce it, the more people that buy it, the scarcer the asset becomes, and the more it pumps because, there's this big demand. And then there's going to be this short supply because all the nations are buying it up. And then they're going to be starting to come for your biddy, folks. And, they'll be willing to pay anything for it. If they think the price is going to $1 million, well, they'll certainly offer you, 700 grand, because that's still a, $300,000 increase for them. So interesting. I still don't know how I'm going to play it. Up until now, I've been really thinking I would be playing the peaks and lows, the peaks and valleys. However, there's something to be said about hodling throughout all these cycles. Anyone who's held on for more than 4 years has always been in the profit. So there's something to be said about that. It's just like stock investing. Do you buy a stock and sell it, in 3 hours like a day trader, or 3 days? Do you hold on for, multiple years like a savvy investor? Or do you do it like Warren Buffett, where his time frame is forever? So still something to be said. I'll be honest. I mean, if the thing goes to $1 million, it would be hard not to take the $1 million. Having said that, you take the $1 million and it goes to 10 million, well, you'll be kicking yourself. So there's always this give and take of FOMO. But at what point is it FOMO, and at what point is it greed? And also, there's a thing called unrealized gains and realized gains. You can leave it in there forever, but then it continues to be unrealized gains. At what point do you take it out to realize these gains? Do you need the money? This is another big thought process. If you need the money, well, of course, you're going to take some of it out. You've made a good profit, take some of it out. If you don't need it, well, probably hodling is a good way to go. Yesterday we talked a lot about financial literacy. I highly recommend you take a look at yesterday's monologue at the beginning. We talked quite a bit. I gave you guys steps both verbally and in the show notes about how to make yourself a millionaire, and this goes beyond crypto. It's using traditional financial markets, and it's just some points to gain some financial literacy for everybody. It's very important for yourselves, very important for your kids to have financial literacy. It's something they don't necessarily teach in school. Even kids coming out of school with economic degrees don't necessarily even have financial literacy, no matter what the professors try and tell them. So go ahead and take a peek at that. The current book of the week we have is Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad. Also, I have links to the YouTube free audiobook and to Kiyosaki's site if you want to buy their book, or of course you can go to Amazon as well. But the full audiobook is on YouTube, completely free. You should check it out. And I also talked about where and how you should be listening to these things, because people complain they don't have time. Well, I've given you great information on where you can find that time. And financial literacy is one of the number one things you can do as a parent and as an individual to give yourself the self-empowerment to have the knowledge to make good decisions with your money and retire young. Remember, money is abundant, money is everywhere, and it's time what's scarce. So spend your time wisely. One of the basics is spend less money than what you earn, and if you suddenly make more money, don't start spending more money, start saving more money, and start saving when you're young. If you start saving when you're 16 or 20, you should be able to retire when you're 40. If you have a great idea, start that idea today. Don't wait around. Don't keep saying, I'm going to do it tomorrow, because tomorrow is never going to come. Start today, even if you're not ready, and things will slowly come together for you. Even after a few mistakes, you'll learn from those mistakes, and things will come together better than you could have ever expected. Hopefully you did find this stream enjoyable. Please share it, like it, comment on it. I am hoping to have 500 subscribers, so please hit that subscribe, and we will see you on the next stream. Folks, thanks so much for joining.